Number 12 is forgiveness.
That's Jesus right there.
No, seriously, it's like when you were about to say it, I was thinking, yeah, but he's going to have a different number than me. So, I mean, it's going to be 12 to 1.
You want to know what's bad is? I was looking at number 12 when y'all said number 12. So we got to go with number 12.
Because forgiveness was sticking out to you.
Forgiveness!
I mean, I got a lot to say about forgiveness.
It's
today,
a hot
so-
topic in my life right now, so I'm yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
Which that goes back
Jesus.
to what I was going to talk about in our last episode, but we're going to go ahead and do it now. And then
All right.
the other one
Are we
be
ready?
so forgiveness and judgment. That's 2 of them.
oh, we've been rolling. All right.
All right, so
Forgiving.
Shit.
ready yet? Two, three. Welcome to the Refine Live podcast. I'm Bigg Vinny. This is Jeff Suter. And over here, we got the one and only Jared Blake. Woo! Today, we're going to be talking about a little topic I like to call forgiveness, okay? And it's going to be a pretty interesting episode, I can already tell you already.
I don't like it already.
Yeah. It can be one of the hardest things to do, but it can also be one of the things that when you do it, it can give you all the relief that you've been looking for.
I think that's where you have to start with it, though.
Yeah.
Because, like, the idea of, like, forgiving other people for the crap they did, opposed to if I want relief,
I'm releasing
I have to
you.
let go of this anger. And slightly, there's a little bit of me that's just like, and it proves that I'm a little better than you.
Not everyone is a narcissist. Okay? See, I worked that in there for you, Tom. No, I think that I learned this lesson whenever I was on Biggest Loser. They came to me and basically was like, "Why are you mad at your mom?" I'm like, "I'm not mad at my mom. What are you talking about? I love my mom. My mom's great. And if you ever met my mom, you'd love her too because you only meet her when she's up, you know. Because when she's down, she's all the way down. She won't be around nobody. Yeah. So they started talking to me on there. It was probably week 2. They're like, we need to talk about your mom and you need to forgive your mom. I'm like, forgive her for what? It's like, well, there's something you're holding. I'm like, how do you know that? And why? I was like, that's not true. And they're like, well, when you took this little test, they make you take this test. I'm sure you had to take it. We talked about that before. So you take this test, and what it showed us was that you love women, you respect women, but you don't trust women. And I was like, how do you know that? He goes, well, we ask you the same question like 5 different ways, and determining by the way you answer those questions on each multiple choice thing, that tells us what it is. So if you don't trust women, most of the time it's because a motherly figure or a grandmother or someone in your life gave you a reason not to trust women. So typically people go after people that are more like their mom if they had a great mom.
What about the vice president? Is that?
Oh, sorry. Anyways, that's all I could say about that. So
She still is, right? She's still a vice president. Right?
I just hadn't seen her in 3 years.
I don't think
Anyways, we're not getting into politics. We'll talk about that on the second
I
episode.
don't think anybody's seen her in 3 years, bro.
I mean, I'm okay with it. She's making that bag and staying home, Anyways, she's supposed to be the border czar. I don't know.
Home.
Yeah. Well, 2020 happened, and she was like, you know what? I'm just going to keep this going. I'm just going to keep staying at home. Anyways, back to the podcast. So they finally, after week 3, they beat the crap out of us. It was NFL week. I got to hang out with Tim Tebow and Eric Dickerson and Drew Brees and Clay Matthews and Sean Merriman, Eric Dickerson. It was awesome for me
names,
because
yeah.
I'm a football guy. So I was so excited to spend a lot of time with Tim Tebow, and the guy, just what an incredible human he was. Maybe we can get him on the podcast one day. We got to get way bigger, but we will. Him and Brad Lee. We're going to get both on.
Yeah, we're going to get
But
them both.
anyways, as I had that
And The
day,
Rock.
we did a boxing deal. So I got to box Tim Tebow. We might get him on. We can get him on.
Well, Chris Jansen knows him. I saw it on TikTok the other day.
Jansen or Hansen?
Chris Jansen.
Knows The Rock?
Yeah. The Rock was doing a thing about Chris Jansen and his new hat with Bass Pro Shop. He was wearing it in the gym.
I'd have called Chris Jansen today.
Yeah.
I got to know if The Rock is cool as I think he is. Back to the podcast. Listen, don't get me. You know how easily sidetracked I am. So I was broken down physically. I got to do a boxing deal with Tim Tebow. So we literally, let me tell you something. I had on this big suit, which is really hard for me to fit in because it's made for a normal size human. I was 500 pounds. He hit me so hard, it knocked me out of breath through the padded suit. So I'm like, this dude could box.
Strong.
I mean, he could hit. But anyways, it was just cool. We had a great conversation with him. He made Entertainment Tonight, Weekly, or whatever, all the big publications. He made them wait till he was done talking to us. And he sat there and talked to us for probably 2 hours, encouraging us, pep talking us, telling us, what was on the other side of all this hard work we were putting in. It was just really cool to have that moment with him. And I was already broken down physically. Now my mind is open, and they come up to me, and it's the doctor. Actually, Dole Vet comes up to me at this point in time. The doctor had already talked to me a couple times, and I'm walking on the treadmill, and I'm walking out, and Dole Vet comes up and he goes, "Hey man, why don't you tell me about your mom?" He goes, "You need to forgive your mom." He goes, I sense that, So now Dole Vet's playing it up, and I'm just sitting there walking on the treadmill, and I start talking. I was like, well, I went through all this hard stuff when I was a kid, and I was out of breath, and next thing you know, I'm like fighting back tears, and I was just open up, and I say everything. Like, she watched my stepdad do this, and he beat us like this, done all these things, and I think the thing that hurt me was the fact that the person that's supposed to protect you the most was nowhere to be found, or she took the other side, seemingly took the other side when it come to protecting me. I said, and I just really don't understand why she would do that. I said, and I think that's where my unforgiveness comes from towards her, because I do love her, and she's been a great mom in a lot of ways. Like, I didn't know it was when I was a kid, but I was a fat kid, and they didn't make shorts in my size in the kids section. So if I wanted Batman shorts, my granny and my mom had to go get material from the back side of Walmart. Back then they had a big cloth, where you could buy material. And we had to go back there and pick it, and she would go and literally sew me shorts and put pockets in them and everything else. Like, she did that for me so that I could have stuff like other kids had, because I was too fat
That's pretty
to have
dope,
them.
though.
Yeah, so it's like she did those
The
things. She
effort.
made all of my Halloween costumes, because guess what? They didn't make Halloween costumes for
I
fat
had the
kids. back
same
then.
lifestyle, but for a different reason. My mom made all that because my dad just refused to buy them.
Yeah, see? I wish
Like,
it was
I'm not paying $30 for what are those jams? What are
So anyway, so like my mom had all these good qualities. And like we talked about, before, if anything, my mom kept us in church every single week, even though she had to fight my stepdad every time she came home. So she had a lot of good things, and I loved her for those things, but they said, you're still fighting back this unforgiveness for her. So he literally looked at me in the eye, and I looked at him. Now, this is after that. They bring the doctor on because I had gotten emotional. They bring the head doctor out, Dr. Hogan, to talk to me, and he's like, hey, man, talk to me about it. Why you find it so hard to forgive your mom? I'm like, you know what? Why should I forgive her for what she let me go through? Why should I forgive her? Why does she deserve that? And he looked at me. He goes, you're a Christian, right? And I said, yeah. He goes, why should God forgive you for every sin that you've committed, when that was basically like putting Jesus back on the cross and hammering those nails in and strapping him with that cat of nine tails and everything else? He goes, every time you commit a sin, that's what he died for. So why should God continue to forgive you when you make mistakes, when you mess up, when you do stuff? And he put me on this exercise. He goes, I want you to put yourself in your mom's shoes. Tell me about her life. I was like, well, she was, 3 years old. Her mom, her mom died giving birth to my aunt. Had a blood clot, went through her system and killed her. Same thing killed my dad, but not from being pregnant. One was from turkey hunting. One was from a pregnancy. She got pregnant when she was 15. Had her first kid at 15. Then had me at 17. Had my sister at 18. By the time she's 20 years old, she's raising 3 kids. She had to go. He goes, well, then probably what she did was she found a guy that could put a roof over your head and food in your belly, because that was the basic needs of any child, at that point, that she knew. And he said, you ever think that you were going through a lot of bad stuff, but so was she? He's like, did she get beat up every day? I was like, every day. He's like, okay, was she held against her will? I mean, there was a lot of stuff that my stepdad did. And I was like, yeah. And he goes, well, she was going through it with you at the same time, plus she had all this other stuff on top of her, trying to figure out how to be a mom, trying to figure out how to do this. So he goes, I'm not saying it means that everything was right that happened. What I am saying is that sometimes you have to put your perspective in somebody else's, perspective and look at it from where they're at. Maybe she was doing the best she could with what she had. And that made me break down and say, man, I never thought of it like that. So sometimes, I'm not saying in every situation with forgiveness, because sometimes you got to forgive even though you would rather punch them in the face. But in every situation that you're in, a lot of times if you'll just step back and say, well, wait a second, let me look at it. Even in our relationships as husbands, let's put ourselves in their shoes and see why they feel the way they feel, or why they see it the way they see it. And doing that for me with my mom, it opened up my heart to give her all this forgiveness, because she's my mom. I love her. I watched her get beat up every single day. Once I did that, I'm like, oh my gosh, like maybe I was the asshole. Like, how did you make me feel like the asshole in this thing? And I was just a kid, but you wish you could have protected her more. You wish you could have done those things. And that was my first situation with true, like, unadulterated forgiveness, like having to let go of all of my feelings and realize that she was going through worse than I was.
I think it's important to point out that prior to that moment, you didn't feel like you needed to forgive her.
No.
There wasn't that.
It was deep
there.
inside me.
Yeah.
And I think when you break down your physical walls, because we build up calluses, right? And the way that I built up my walls was I just kept going out there and succeeding. I just kept going out there. Oh, I got the record deal. I was this top guy at Sonic. I got my football accolades and most valuable lineman and this. I was constantly stacking up these accolades to be like, look at me.
Yeah.
And part of that was because my stepdad beat us down mentally every day, just as bad as physically. Is, you dumb mother effer, you're never going to be anything, you fat if you seek. Like, he called us all that stuff every day. And so your mind gets told that every day as a 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12-year-old kid, whatever. It continues to be in your brain that's who you are, because this is the person that's supposed to teach you everything.
That's right.
And he did. I mean, he taught me how to hunt, how to fish, how to work. He taught me a lot of great things. But in the flip side of it, he also told me how much I sucked at it every single day.
I just realized something is we talk about it all the time, like the issues that you have and you running to different vices for it. And we talk about, I ran to alcohol and drugs and you ran to food. And I just realized that my addiction was way better than yours because I didn't have to achieve anything with mine. I could just get high and drunk and I felt okay.
And as long as you had that guitar in your hands, people kept handing it to you.
I didn't have to accomplish anything. You had to like get a record deal and all sorts of crazy stuff to feel better about yourself. So boys and girls, if you need to be an addict of some kind, food is not effective for you. Obviously that my week's been a little bit different. Had a few things going on at home, and it's really brought that idea of forgiveness, to me and my wife as well. But a lot of what we're going through and thinking about is this kind of the same thing, but the opposite side.
Yeah.
Of realizing that, like, if your kid does you wrong, even if they don't ask for forgiveness, if they don't apologize, they don't do anything. If they just come back, you're just like, I'm here. Yeah. Like you just continue to accept your child over and over and over again, right? There's nothing to change that. But a child can turn on a parent really easy.
Yeah.
Think about the times that you've been mad at your parents. And so like what the therapist did with you, with your mom, is the same thing that me and my wife have been discussing. It was like, it's funny. You don't want to put this on your child. At the same time, you're like, the things that you're judging us on as parents or the mistakes that we're making, you forget that we're humans.
Yeah.
You forget that we make mistakes.
Yeah.
You forget that, like, you don't know what we're going through in our personal life.
Yeah.
It's not like I'm voicing to you, hey, well, me and your mom just had like the biggest fight of our life. Or I'm not saying, hey, we just lost all this money on this, job over here or this gig or, the years of struggle when you got 6 kids, the years of struggling financially is significant.
Right.
And you don't ever put that on them. The only thing that they know is that you got certain rules when you go out to eat. Like that's about it. Like they don't know what you're going through. They don't know the pressure that's on.
Right.
You.
Yeah.
And so, obviously I can't fully relate to what happened with your mom, but I can see on my side, my children don't understand that. And the weird spot is like with that forgiveness, I think that in a large way, I'm learning to forgive my children for things that they don't even know that they need forgiveness for.
Right.
Like that they're not even asking.
They're not even
it.
aware.
I'm just
kind of like
get mad about things of like, do you not get all that I've done for you? And you're mad about this thing that I said wrong.
I'm going to tell you
which
this.
is really, really intense these days because we all know that feelings are far more important than facts at this point.
Who needs
in life.
facts when you got feelings?
So
Okay.
it's constant. It's like, did I do? I mean, my dad, he was like, his go-to line was always, he didn't really say he loved us. He didn't really hug on us much, didn't compliment us that much, but he was like, did I not put a roof over your head? Did I not put food in your belly?
Yeah.
Well, that says I love you then, and you try to go a step beyond whatever your parents did.
Right.
And you still get slapped in the face for it. And so the whole idea of forgiveness, I feel like my lesson this week is probably for the first time in my life of that whole thing in the Bible about, someone slaps your cheek, give them another cheek. Yeah. That's where I feel like I'm at right now. I'm like, okay, all right, I realize I'm bigger than you on this. I realize I've been through more life than you. I'm going to turn the other cheek. I'm going to take this crap and we're going to move on. And my only hope in that is I really don't, I'm realizing I don't need an apology to forgive.
Yeah.
Your hope and desire is that someday they see what that was. And most likely it'll be while a child is doing something to them. That they're like, oh. I mean, like, dude, I've talked to my father in the last couple of weeks more than I've ever talked to him because I'm just like, every day I'm like, hey, thanks. I'm sorry I was an ass.
Well,
By the way,
I say from a child perspective, that apology might come as they gain more wisdom.
in their older
Might
life,
not
yeah.
get it today, but as they gain more adulthood and more wisdom, they might realize.
So I'm
snap,
wise now. Is that what you're saying?
for sure.
Yes.
That's why the gray's
Yes.
coming. That's why the gray's
I'm
coming
gonna
in your
tell my
beard.
wife.
For too long, you can
Tell
look like Gandalf,
I mean,
bro.
hey, I think I have hit a wise because I won an argument last night.
No,
We're
no. You
walking
think
down-
you want an
we're
argument?
walking down
That's
the
not a very
street.
wise thing to say.
Nope, I told her that I was going to tell
Edit,
you guys
edit.
about it on the podcast. I shouted out. We were walking down the street, and I shouted out to the neighborhood. I was like, "I was right, fellas. It does happen."
On this
Keep the
day, a
faith.
national holiday.
All right, so what were we right about?
Oh, I don't remember. I was so excited about being right. I don't know.
It was the green curtains.
So
instead of
this,
blue ones.
it's. I think it's awesome that we selected forgiveness the way we did because we apparently all have been going through something this week around.
We didn't mention that it was
forgiveness.
brought to you by the number 12.
It
Yes.
was brought to you by the number 12.
Which happens to be half of 24, which is half a case. And that's about the time that you start thinking about forgiveness. It's about a half a case.
No. Mine is a full bottle and a couple of cases the next day later that you're like,
You're like,
oh.
Hey,
What?
what I would
You-
say
you-
is this. In case we didn't get at the top of this thing, this came about because I had 24 ideas for podcast episodes in my phone, and both of them picked 12 while I was simultaneously looking at 12. So that was a trifecta, which brought us to 12, which 12 is 3 times 4, which there's only 3 of us here, but we were thinking about it 4 times. And that is why we got the alphanumeric code that we just put into the AI that is actually 2 words.
I don't, if you followed that, you're wiser than me.
We're not sure what just happened.
I went straight Gary V. I went
Vinny
straight
happened.
Gary V on you is what happened.
Hey, you got in trouble
Here's what I was
last
going to
time for
say.
that.
Here's what I was going to say.
I can't believe you missed anything.
In what you're going through right now. I just wiped a booger on you. I didn't really wipe a booger on him, but maybe I did. In what you're going through right now, because of your amazing toxic masculinity, you shouldered all those years of not knowing how you were going to get Christmas presents for them and still got Christmas presents for them. You shouldered all those
While
years.
Santa took the credit, by the way.
While Santa got the credit. Yeah.
Right.
Oh, yeah. You gave ungodly massages. I mean, godly massages. No, in all those years that you take that on, and as men, I'm just now going through that, right? You know, people don't know. It's like, I got to figure out how we're doing this, this, and this, and how I'm going to get them on a vacation, how I'm going to make sure that I show up for Taekwondo, plus be there at a business meeting, plus do all these other things, you know. Yesterday, I ended up missing Taekwondo because we was in a business meeting. He was with me, so it was all cool. I didn't miss that time with my son, but he ended up not going to Taekwondo. But in all your toxic masculinity, you shouldered those things, and they had no clue the amount of stress, the amount of fear, the amount of things that you took on your shoulders. And I think as men, and women too, I know there's single moms out there, I'm not just excluding them, but as men, you're expected to shoulder all that and never complain and never be upset, you know, and never, you know.
Never develop a drinking
Never-
problem.
Don't do drugs, you know. But no, I mean, I just think it's, you know, we talked about this the other day. There was a female, I think she was an athlete or something. I'll have to look up the story, but basically she decided that it was easier to be a man. So she cut her hair, put on business suits, and started living as a man every single day, portraying herself as a man. After 6 months, she wanted to commit suicide. And she openly talks about this. You can find it on the interwebs. And we'll definitely, maybe we can find that and get that on the thing. But she just said, she's like, if you knew, she's like, nobody opened my door. Nobody greeted me. Nobody, you know, was nice to me. He goes, if I was down, there was nobody that I would talk to about my problems. She said, I felt secluded and completely away. And I think we're blessed because we have each other, you know, that we've gained. But for the long time in my life, if I had something going on in my life, I just couldn't by myself in the dark and thought about it.
You also just hit something like with the door open, no one smiled at me, no one talked to me, those sort of things. Like,
Yeah.
I was just thinking about like that. I don't know how much of a practice that is in women. I'm not saying that it is or is not. I just don't know. But I know that like I can tell like if I'm not getting much activity out of other people around me, I think back and I was like, it's my face. I'm not smiling at you. And so I also noticed that like I tend to get good reaction to people. You get good reaction. You get good reaction. But it's because I'm making an effort to smile at people.
Yeah.
And so I wonder, you know, if men have been in that role for so long that we realize we have to adapt and do something different in order to get any sort of reaction where maybe women do just naturally get the door open for them, naturally be
Well, I mean,
smiled at.
I've
or
been taught
saying
since the
they
day I
did.
was born by my granny, by my mom, by everybody's like, hey, you hold the door for a lady.
Right, absolutely.
But I was always taught open the door for anybody. If you get to the door first and there's
Yeah.
3 or 4 people coming, open the door and
Open
hold
the
it
door.
open for
Yeah.
them.
Yeah.
I've been always taught that, but especially when it
I've
comes
got
to
stuck
women.
there a few times.
I know. I'm like, hey, how do y'all keep coming from?
Just keep coming.
But no, but I think you're naturally, as a, and maybe I don't know if that's that way everywhere. I say it's a Southern gentleman, but I've had people hold the door for me in, all over the country. So hopefully it's just something that's taught. It's just good manners to be there. I have no problem smiling at people. It's kind of my natural way of being. Sometimes I'm smiling thinking, what is this idiot doing? Why is he cutting me off in traffic? Hey, guy, good to see you. Thanks for flipping me off.
I'm sure you've seen that. He's got an ability, and Jared Weeks had it as well.
Yeah,
and
Weeks is good.
it was hilarious, but almost annoying for me on the road because there could be a cashier at the gas station, and he would come in, and Weeks would be right behind him. Same sort of, your nails are so pretty today. You're blah, 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 blah. And they would just flirt and flirt and flirt. And you'd see
Easy,
this
not
woman,
flirting. Compliments.
You'd see this woman who's like, oh my gosh, and they mean nothing by it. They're just making this person happy.
Just making their day.
Yeah.
I don't have that ability. If I say something, it sounds sexual for some reason. I don't know. Like they're either the person is like, oh, he's hitting on me, or they're like, what was that? That's really out of line. Like, I don't know why. I don't know what it is about your nature that you can compliment. If I compliment people, it just doesn't work the same way.
Yeah. No, I've seen it in live and in person, and them be like taken back by you saying something nice to them, whereas I could have said the same thing. Or
you could have
Weeks,
said something way.
and Weeks might be better at it than me. I don't know how, but
Weeks is good.
he's good. Like he could literally come in, he'll do a little dance, he'll do a little butt roll, this whole thing. He'll have the whole people in there like, hey, how are you doing? But half the time we'd go in, we'd have me and him and Sloan would be with us sometimes and be like, so are y'all wrestlers? And what are you, the manager? And they pointed at you Weeks. Are you the manager? And we're like, yeah, we're all professional wrestlers, But no, it is interesting. I've seen it take place where you literally could have said the same thing that I said, but it gets taken so much differently. And I don't know if it's because like, oh, he's a cute teddy bear in his overalls, or of course half the time we'd go on the road, I'd be in pajama pants and they might have Scooby Doo on them. You never know what I've been traveling in.
It's the
I don't have it.
delivery,
I don't have it.
man.
Hey, maybe they're just putting their sexual tension onto you.
I don't like it. I don't think they should. Yeah. What you got on forgiveness? I know that was a big subject for you today too.
Yeah, so Autumn and I got a postcard in the mail this week from someone that is no longer really a part of our life. And it specifically stated that they missed us and that they hoped there'd be room for forgiveness in the future. And I just texted Autumn back when she sent me a picture of it and said, throw it in the trash. Who cares? Not probably the best response, but
Honest, though. Right?
Honest.
Honestly, the way you felt.
I feel like I'm like you, where I have forgiven and moved on, and that's why it's so easy for me to just say, throw it away. But also taking it a step further, forgiveness for what? If you're looking for that forgiveness, how
And then admit your mistake.
How can I forgive you for you're not even bringing that to the forefront?
Well, I think in them saying, I hope you can find room for forgiveness, I think they realize that you know what they did, and they obviously are now saying they know what they did. So it's a matter of, you can forgive them and still not be part of their life.
Agreed.
You could even let them know, like, hey, I forgive you. All is good there. You never have to worry about it again. I don't choose to spend my time with you anymore. Is like, because
People don't know how to take that at all. They do not understand that theory.
But it's something that you've helped me be better about that kind of thing.
That comes back to a prior episode where we were talking about building our Super Bowl team.
Yeah,
right.
Like how we have to determine who's feeding our energy and who's draining our energy.
Well, it's just a simple math like this. Like with my mom, I forgive her, and she's doing so much better now. I mean, she's. It's been a couple of years since anything really crazy has happened or whatever. Which, well,
that's awesome.
Well, a little over a year, but. I like to think it's 2 years. Anything over a year is 2 years. But she's been doing well. I forgave her a long time ago. I think that some other people in my family hold stuff over her head still and be like, well, you're the reason that I'm like this or like that. And I don't believe in that. You know what I mean? Like, I believe that your circumstances when you were a kid were something you had to go through, and it might have stopped you for a little while. But if you're 30, 40 years old, 45 years old, and you're still saying, oh, that thing that happened to me when I was 12 is keeping me from succeeding in life, that's you not deciding to continue with your life. And I don't care what's your race, what's your religion, what's your sexual orientation, any of those things that that have been a battle for you in life. I think that when you look at those things, you have to look and say, hey, it was hard for me to get through that period, but I got through it. And if now I'm still trying to look back and blame that for my shortcomings now, like if I was still sitting back and looking back at my childhood and saying, well, the reason I'm not anybody, and the reason I don't have this or don't have that, if I keep doing that and keep saying it's because of what happened to me when I was 11, you know what I mean? Like, I'm 40 years old now.
Yeah.
I've lived way more of my life out of that situation than I ever lived in it. So it's up to me to change that. You can't change the past, but you can damn sure change the future and change your present. And a lot of that state of mind, and I get it. It takes time to get there. I'm not saying it's got to happen overnight. But I have also forgiven my stepdad, who did the beating, who did the horrendous things that,
I have not.
Jared has not. But what I look at is like, hey, this was a dude that went through NOM. He's saw certain things, allegedly was a Navy SEAL. I say that because I have no proof that he was. I've just had him wear his hat that said Navy SEAL on it all the time and tell us he was a Navy SEAL. I actually could get a buddy of mine to look that up and see if he actually was a Navy SEAL, because they can get stolen valor, all that kind of stuff. Anyways, I don't want to put him through that. But my point is, I have forgiven him. I don't wish anything bad on him. I am thankful for the things that he taught me. I mean, he taught me how to tie a fisherman's knot. He taught me about baseball. He come out and played catch with us. When he was good, he was good. The problem was that ended usually within an hour or two of being good. He was like Jekyll and Hyde. You know what I mean? It's like all of a sudden, it's like, wait, where did this monster come from? You were just watching Three Stooges and laughing with me a while ago.
It's when he went from beer 11 to beer 12.
Yeah. No, he wasn't a beer guy. He was a cocaine, and when he was on weed, he was great. If he just smoked weed all the time, we'd have been perfect.
You heard it here first.
Yeah. I mean, he would have been mellow and calm. Instead, he's like, hey, let me do some PCP and some heroin and some other stuff. Anything that was an upper sent him out of control. And of course, he had hallucinations and all kinds of stuff. But I don't wish bad upon him. I want him to have a good life. I want him to find Jesus. I want him to make his way into heaven. I am appreciative and thankful of the things he did spend time with me and teach me. I believe that's where, I don't think you can talk about all somebody's bad flaws without talking about their good things that they did too. Now, everybody doesn't have good things they did for you. Some people just did you wrong and that was it, But for the most part, like if you live in with somebody, there's probably at some point they did something good. Even if it wasn't near as much as the bad, or it didn't change as much as the bad, I still forgive him. I still want him to have a good life. If I saw him today, I'd say, hey, I'd shake his hand and say thank you. Yeah. I don't want to have him around my kids. I don't want to have him around my now wife. I don't want him to be back with my mom. I don't want any of those things. I think that ship has sailed. But I do want him to know, like, hey, you're forgiven. Like, I don't have an ill will towards you. I do still have effects of what happened to me.
Yeah.
I do still have moments in public where I see somebody doing something that I think is a little bit past what they should be doing to their kid, or the way they're handling the situation. Not that we don't all get frustrated, but I was walking into Kohl's, this is about 3 years ago, and I got in a fight with this dude. But his son was excited. They were at Kohl's, and he got into this little buggy thing, and he started like, kicking, and like he was having fun. He was laughing. And his dad goes, hey, stop that, boy. And the son kept doing it, But like I said, he was laughing. He wasn't whining, crying. He wasn't. And I'm telling you, he went over there and he warped his legs. And this is a grown man whooping a 3-year-old kid. He warped his legs 5 or 6 times, like, pow, hitting him hard. And I just lost it. I said, hey. I was like, what are you doing? I was like, he's a little bitty kid, dude. What are you doing? Well, you mind your own business. I'm like, no, I'm about to mind your business. I was mad. I'm in Kohl's, madder than hell, I think it'd be one thing if he'd have popped him on the butt, just a little pop, like, hey, you need to settle down. Like, that's one thing. But I'm talking about, he was full back, rearing back and hitting this kid in the legs. I'm like, I'm sure they bruised up. And I had tears in my eyes. This guy knew, like, I put the fear of God in him. Let's just say that. Like, I told him, I said, what if I do that to you? But with tears in my eyes and hyperventilating, like, I was mad. And, I felt bad about it. Of course, I went home and, told my wife what I did. And she's like, well, glad he didn't shoot you, because that's a thing now. But I
still kind of want to see you go nuts on somebody at some point.
I don't. Because
it would destroy him after the fact.
It would. I've done it before in my past.
But think of all the joy it would give us.
That's a good point.
Sometimes you got to sacrifice, Vinny.
Yeah, that's true. All right, let's go out there and get somebody. No, I think for me, like, it's very hard to make me mad, and it's very hard to get me upset. I mean, most of the time, even when somebody's mad at me or upset with me, like I had a situation today where a person yelled and cussed at me today. And I simply said, well, first off, stop cussing at me. And then they got even madder and they hung up on me, hadn't talked to me since, which I'm okay with that. But I forgive that person. I'm already over it. You know, I wouldn't say I'm over it, but I'm like, I know I didn't do anything wrong in the situation. So I can live with myself. And if they decide
I'm
to
still
go,
not over it.
yeah.
Me either.
You don't even know what happened. You're not over it. Anyways, all I'm saying is there's going to be situations in your life when you've been through some trauma that's going to bring back up that trauma, no matter if you've forgiven the person or anything else. When you see stuff, it's hard for me to watch when I watch movies and a kid's getting beat, even if this stuff, it ain't even near as bad as what I went through, not even close.
Yeah.
And I still just get, I get like my heart starts beating fast. Like it bothers me in a level that, it's hard for me to watch.
It's hard not to insert yourself in that situation.
The movie about the song, the big Christian song. It was just a massive. I can only imagine watching that movie was hard for me. I love the movie. I love the song. The story is there. Of course, it's always weird for me to see Dennis Quaid being an a-hole because I've always loved Dennis Quaid, but he plays a good asshole sometimes. I say a-hole and asshole, both of those things in the same sentence. But when he is hitting his son and when he's doing those things in the movie, it's hard for me to watch, even though it was nothing. I got smacked in the back of the head. You know what I mean? I think he might have broke a plate over his head at one point, which was probably the worst thing that happened in there, which was pretty bad. But I watched that and it gets me almost like anxiety. I don't get anxiety. I'm one of these guys. I'll always find the positive in every situation, but those kind of things do trigger me into those emotions. And I think that is only caused because of what I went through. So I see it differently because when it brings up things that happened to me, it changes my perspective on that thing. The same thing I think for somebody that might have been sexually molested in a way or a rape victim, it's probably hard for them to ever watch a movie that portrays that, which most of the time they portray it without showing it. But there has been movies along the way that I've seen that show it in detail. And that's hard for anybody to watch, I think, if you have a heart. But I think for people that have been through it, it's probably way harder for them to watch that because they know it's like they feel like they're back in that situation, especially if you got good actors.
Yeah. So let me go back and ask a question. You thought you'd forgiven your mom.
Mm-hmm.
You learned while you're broken down that you had not forgiven your mom, and then you've forgiven your mom. What do you think true forgiveness looks like? What's the difference between somebody who feels like they've forgiven somebody versus someone who has truly forgiven somebody? Because there's a difference there is what I'm hearing.
No, there is. And so you can say the words, I forgive you, it's all good. And then every time the subject comes up, you get mad about it. If you're still harboring feelings in your heart, you haven't truly forgiven them. You might have said the words, I forgive you, or it's no big deal, but you haven't truly faced those demons. I think for me, when I truly forgave my mom, this weight come off my shoulders. Like I was on a TV show to lose weight, right? I lost more weight that day that I've been carrying around on my shoulders for all these years of this just animosity towards her that I didn't even realize was there because I just kept filling my life up with accomplishments and different things. When I forgave her and I truly forgave her, all that came off my shoulders. And not once have I ever placed a blame on her. Not once have I ever looked back and said, hey, well, I'm failing in life because of this, or you put me through this. I can't, never once have I tried to make her feel guilty for that. And I think that's the difference. Even like my sister and my brother, I think they have forgiven her as best they can right now. But I think they have this animosity still towards her that, they will accuse her of things and be like, well, I know there's been a situation with my sister where, my mom tried to tell her a better way to parent, which that happens to all of us, right? Our parents always try to tell us a better way to parent. But my mom was right about what she was saying and said it to Cheyenne. And Cheyenne's like my best friend. She's my little sis. We are the same mom, same dad. We're born 15 months apart. We're best buds. And I took my mom's side on it because I'm like, Cheyenne, what she's saying is true. This would be a better idea, and she got so mad at my mom. And so and she literally says to her, well, it's, I'm going to take advice from you. Look what you had us go through. To put that back on them 25 years after the fact, I was like, there's no way that you can.
That's a grudge.
That's a grudge, and so you haven't truly forgiven them. and letting them off the hook. You got to forgive them. You got to let it go. When God forgives us for the sins that we've committed, and we all commit them every day, like no matter how good we try to be, we're flawed. We sin. We lust. We overindulge. We go out and do these things that we know we're not supposed to do. Like but we still do them. And that's just human nature, right? So God keeps forgiving us. You go and you say, man, I wish I hadn't made that mistake. I wish I hadn't done this. I wish I hadn't done that. Man, I shouldn't have talked to that person. I got mad. Traffic is when it gets me. Like if you want to see me get mad, ride with me long enough in traffic and you'll see me.
Just drive through Atlanta.
Oh, yeah. Well, as long as I got
No,
Elvis music on, I'm good. No, Atlanta, I try to maintain my calm because you will get shot in Atlanta. Hot Atlanta. But I think the difference is you don't ever bring it back up. Even in your personal relationship, like with your husband or your wife, or I know, it's 2023, whatever you got. You can have both. But in your personal relationships, it's like if me and Jared had a conflict and then we bring it back up to use it against each other in an argument, 2 years later, that's not a true forgiveness. We're holding a grudge, and you need to have that conversation. If you and your wife are having a conversation and you bring up something that she did, 4 years ago that made you mad, well, you haven't forgiven her for that. And you're carrying that grudge around every day. And if you're carrying that grudge around every day, you're going to overreact to little things that happen in your life.
It's hard to climb the mountain carrying a lot of grudges.
Yeah. No, it is. I mean, you got a whole
Like
sack
you
full of
said,
them,
You lost more weight that day than you ever had. So.
And I think we can all, when you're married, obviously you go through everything together. You're together every single day. You get frustrated. The kids are doing this or that. You're going to have an argument. Sometimes it gets taken out on the spouse, even when the spouse is like, hey, what did I do? What happened? Why are you going off on me? I just walked in the door. What's going on?
It's the fact you haven't been here.
Yeah. You've been gone all day.
That's one of those sides, though, that a little bit different, but Jen and I went through a rough patch. All about it. And it was a lot of forgiveness for better part of a year, 2 years that we spent, where you'd still bring up some of these things. And in the last probably year and a half, doesn't really get brought up.
Yeah.
Those things have kind of gone. And now moving forward, it's even gotten to a point where, I think it was Jen that brought it up the other day. She said something about, she came home, and I think she was in a bad mood, just kind of take it out on me. And for some reason, I just kind of rolled with it that day. It didn't bother me. And later on, she said something else. She's like, I'm really glad that we're getting to a point where we can
get mad.
Because you're only taking this out on this person because it's the person that you view the strongest, the best. You have no fear of this person leaving you. You have no fear of what happens. So you're letting your guard down like that.
Yeah.
If you start viewing it that way, for both of us, I've noticed that we've now are getting closer to not relating that person's mood to having anything to do with us.
Yeah.
So if either one of us come in angry, we just immediately look at it and like, oh man, you had a sucky day. I'm so sorry. And even if you seem like you're snappy with us, we're just like, that's not about me. I haven't even been with you. I did nothing.
Yeah.
Like,
well, I
think
think
home to a cleaner house than the last time you left. So I don't know.
Even in the situation that I was in today, I do realize that I was the recipient of somebody else's stress that was caused from things that I had nothing to do with. You know what I mean? And I luckily I'm big enough and I can shoulder some words and things like that. I think a lot of times when we catch the brunt end of things and when we're caught off guard is because they are mad about something else. There's something else going on in their life that they're already frustrated about. And even if you, like I said, if you have that one little thing that you say that shouldn't even set somebody off, but then all of a sudden they're yelling and cussing and being that way, like I said, in all these years that we've known each other, we've had two situations where we even were frustrated with each other. And
it lasted about 5 minutes.
Yeah, that was it. And then we were fine. We were good. But whenever somebody turns to yelling and cussing at me, my first reaction is, hey, I'm gonna ask you not to talk to me that way. I'm gonna ask you not to cuss me. I'm gonna ask you not to say those kind of things to me. Mm-hmm. And until you're ready to have a civil conversation, then let's not talk.
I mean, I'm definitely the same way on that. And I think that's part of society that's kind of become a double standard to a degree.
Yeah.
Of that, if you seem like a more aggressive sort of person, you got to keep your cool and your calm.
Yeah.
But if you're not a very aggressive person, you can scream and yell all you want to.
Yeah.
And so, and this was when Jen and I were going through some difficult times.
Yeah.
That I was very quick to let her know when she would get agitated, and with anyone else, to hey, you need to pull this back, because I had to work years to pull myself
Yeah,
back down
absolutely.
here.
Yeah.
And so it's like I know that I'm. It's like a clock. It's on a timer. You
Right.
start yelling at me, I can only hold it back for so
Yep.
long.
Yeah.
You know. And more than yell at me, if whatever you're saying is stupid, if it's completely illogical,
Yeah.
like I'm just like my head wants to explode. I'm just like, what?
You know what? You know what's worse to me? Worse to me than both of those is when you're trying to be passive aggressive but condescending.
Mm.
Like when you're trying to be like, well, I guess blah 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 and da da da. You know, like when you do like that kind of thing where you act like you're giving the argument up, but you're really not. Like me and my brother, we were best friends. Me and my brother Steven. But a few times that we've had arguments in our life, we'll get hot headed at each other because we're brothers. You know, you have those situations, especially when you live together for a long time. But he used to have that thing, and he did it because he knew that was the way to get me out of. Because normally I'm calm, I'm like, hey man, you know, I understand. Let's talk about this. Let's figure it out. Da, da, da. He knew. I mean, you know what? It's not even a big deal. You know what? I was probably the one that was wrong about everything, and you're always right anyway. So it's all good. You win the argument. It's fine. Don't even worry about it. And that's when I'm like, all right, mother.
Now I'm really good. Now I'm really
now
gonna win it.
I'm like, first off, don't condescend me. Don't be passive aggressive with me. You know, I'd rather you come at me with a gnashing of teeth than be condescending. Like I love to have just a conversation. Like, hey man, you know what? The other day you did this. I didn't appreciate that. It made me think this. Now I'm cool to have those conversations. That's the way I try to handle it. I do understand that everybody's different. So when somebody needs to let loose for a second and do their yelling, like today, what happened to me, I let him finish. I let the guy finish the situation. Blah blah blah. GD this, F that. Blah, you know, all this other stuff. And I'm sitting there and I'm listening. And my first response was, I said, first off, don't cuss at me anymore. And then it got way worse for him, you know?
Yeah.
Because now I wasn't being condescending. I was giving him the chance to know that if we were together and you screamed and yelled and got in my face like I assumed you would have tried to do, this would have been a different outcome. I can only take so much for so long. But if you're GD and MFing me, you know?
I think you would have overhead pressed him.
Yeah, I could have
That's
done
what
that.
I visualized.
By-
Into
by-
the
I
Because
could-
you're
ceiling.
at like 300 now, right?
325.
325.
325.
My apologies.
Don't be taking
Strong
about
man.
25 pounds. And you know what? I put it as 320 on the thing and then not realizing that it was actually 325. I miscalculated.
I'm not trying to squat 325, much less throw it over my head.
Yeah.
I'm just saying.
Yeah. I got
That's
strong
all right.
shoulders.
I'm proud
But
of you.
I had
man.
a guy, similar conversation, that called me out over a business dealing, and I think he just thought that he had some sort of control over me that he didn't,
Yeah.
and he started cussing me. And I remember I was in the Sprinter on the way to the gig, and he was just yelling, and
Oh, I know who this
I don't
one
know
is.
what it was in me. God's protected me multiple times from my anger. I don't know what it was. I just started laughing. And he was like,
That's when you know.
what are you effing laughing at? And I was like, I'm laughing at you, bro. And he was like, why are you laughing at me? And I was like, people don't yell at me very often, so it's kind of funny.
This is what I
just
realized.
Listening to you
People are
yell.
scared of Jared. They're not scared of me, even though I'm bigger. You know, all this. People look at Jared, they're like, I'm going to yell at him.
You know why? Because I look like I have a gun or a knife, because I do. And you don't.
No, look
You
like
have them,
he
but
ain't
they're
gonna do
home.
anything. No, it's funny. Like we've had some situations on the road where, you deal with a lot of personalities out on the road, and nobody ever yells at Jared. They're always calm with Jared, but then sometimes with me, they'll start raising their voice and getting. And I'm like,
Well, they never yelled at Chris either. But Chris also was packing too.
yeah. Well, we know that he's went on to someone's said bus, knocked on the door, and drugged somebody out of the bus and said, about to cut him. And Chris is
And
like the
that
sweetest
was on
dude.
behalf of me, though.
On
He
behalf of
felt
you.
that I was done wrong.
Yeah, if you'd have done it to him personally,
Listen, this
he'd
guy
have
had
been
crossed the line. He drew a mustache on my face on my trailer. And Chris didn't like it.
Like
And this was the-
permanently?
This was the headliner's guitar player.
And
Chris
it was a marker. I mean, it came off.
beats
but
on
Chris
the
made him
door of
clean
the
it
tour
off.
bus. Beats on the door of the tour bus. Get out here right now. And Chris is like the most calm. I mean, he's
He
like
hates his story.
he's like a hippie. He's the most peaceful dude in the world. And then when I heard the story, I'm like, and we were in Montana. We were in North Dakota. Was it North Dakota when we did that?
maybe.
Because I was playing there, but it was separate from y'all. But
Mm.
I think that's what it was, or was it Sturgis?
Oh, it's Sturgis. No,
Oh, I wasn't
no.
there then. We did the North Dakota show together. Anyways, it was always funny when he told me the story. I'm like, there's no way. And I look at Chris. He's like, I was not one of my best moments. I probably should have handled it different. I was like, no, I actually like it because I know that if they would have drew a mustache on Chris, they'd be like, oh well, he'd have been let it go. But because he attacked Jared, it was like probably because they were mad because Jared.
He was like a kid. Like we were still sitting in the bar, and he comes in and he's like, "Come on!" And I was like, "Where are we going?" And he was like, "Jail." And I was like, "Oh, this isn't good."
Well, anyways, I think the point of this whole thing is we're all going to go through stuff.
Facts.
We're all going to make mistakes. I want forgiveness. And if I want forgiveness from people for the mistakes and the sins that I have to be able to give forgiveness. And the old saying, I think, says unforgiveness is like drinking the poison and waiting for it to kill the other person. So when you're holding on to all that stuff, you're really bogging yourself down. And a lot of times when you're giving people forgiveness, you're not giving them forgiveness for them. You're giving them forgiveness so that you're relieved of it. You're completely set free. Yeah. And you never know how much guilt they're carrying. Maybe they're sitting there having all this guilt and all these things, and you're giving them that forgiveness. It might make them a better person. It might change their situation, because if they're sitting there holding on to that guilt, a lot of times when people have guilt, they feel like, well, I've already messed up anyway, so it doesn't matter. And they continue down that path. Whereas if somebody comes to them and say, hey, you know what? You did me wrong. And I was really upset with you for a while, but I want you to know that I forgive you. I'm not going to hold this against you. I want you to go out and, just do better. Just don't do it to anybody else. And I think if you can do that for somebody, you, like I said, you relieve yourself, but maybe you make them a better person in the process. And, I think love is going to always win in those situations. And what's the other saying is cooler heads prevail. I've had to learn that a lot. You know what I mean? There's been times when I wanted to be mad and wanted to say stuff, and I've let it roll, and I was like, okay, suck it up, breathe a little bit, and respond. And I'm a reactive person, so learning to respond instead of react has been one of my greatest lessons that I've learned in life is, okay, let me take this in for a second. Because what I wanted to say today was, if I seen you right now, I would choke you to death. That's what I wanted to say.
It's funny because, like, as you were talking about all this, I was thinking about, like, all the guys that I know, they're friends of mine that, like, there's certain things are forgiven and other things, no chance.
Yeah, different levels.
And I was thinking about how,
like, if somebody messed with my kid or something, there's no forgiveness.
I mean, I'll probably forgive you. I'll just get revenge.
I don't think revenge and forgiveness go in the same sentence, but maybe.
Well, maybe what about if you have the revenge first?
Then forgive them.
Right.
I like it.
All right. So anyway, I was thinking about, how reality is that if you're unwilling to forgive, it's just a sign of ignorance as well.
Yeah.
It's not wisdom. It's not helping you. It is hurting you.
Yeah.
It's absolutely hurting you. And there's a great chance that the person that you're holding this against doesn't think about you at all.
It happens every day.
Not at all.
They have no guilt of it, and they still believe they was right, especially when you're dealing with a narcissist.
But I do believe, for me personally, it's definitely been my children to teach me that in a totally different way. And I mean, if you think about it, it makes sense that they would teach you better than anyone else, because it's the whole Father, Son, Holy Ghost, that whole the example that we have in the Bible is, the same, the Father forgiving, the prodigal son, all these different, lessons that we have in there. So it's that lesson with my kids is definitely putting me in a spot where, outside of my wife, I think I'm getting to a spot where I really only crave forgiveness from God.
Yeah.
But anyone else, I feel like, hey, I can go and I can apologize. I can try to make it right. And if you don't accept that's all I can do.
Yeah.
But I think a lot of that is too, also, like we talked about with the three of us, that having friends like us around and having a good group of people that know each other, that can be honest with each other about their mistakes. I mean, my mistakes are still at a level that if I told any of you guys everything that I did wrong in the last year, you'd be like, half of it, you'd be like, me too. Like they're not, you'd be like, I get it, and even if it was something that you're like, holy crap, I didn't see that one coming. Yeah. You still know who I am on the inside. You still know what my heart is,
Well, I think, we've been in this industry a long time, and we've had people confide in us with things that have, that's happened. And I never have a judgment on somebody. And I'll never look at them and be like, oh my gosh, I can't, I'm always like, man, I'm sorry that was the decision you made, or I'm sorry you're going through that. I'm sorry that, you relapse or whatever it is that you're dealing with, because throwing judgment on them and being like, oh, well, you're an idiot. Well, I mean, like, that's not going to help them get better.
Yeah.
Most people are looking for someone that can come in and not sugarcoat stuff. That's one of the things I love about Jerry. Jerry won't sugarcoat nothing. I mean, he'll tell you exactly what it is, but then he'll try to help you through the situation.
Yeah.
And I think for me, I'm more of a sugarcoater. Like if Jerry calls me with a problem, I'll try to, well, buddy, I mean, I know you did, this and this and this, but you were right about this and this. And I'll try to sugarcoat it, make him feel better about whatever it was. Whereas I think he has a couple friends that he calls on when he needs somebody to say, hey, quit being an idiot. I'm here for you and I love you, but
for the most part, no, I need more like what you do because I'm already telling myself I'm an idiot.
Right.
I'm very aware of what I did.
Very good at beating themselves up.
I'm great at it.
Yeah.
And so I need those happy people around me.
Yeah.
Jared Weeks was a great balance of that.
Yeah.
Because he was in between that. He was still gonna be, well, you was in the wrong, right, buddy?
Yeah.
What you gonna do about it?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, like I said, I think it's good to have a balance of those friends around you. So, anyways, I think this has been an awesome episode. I think that,
Where can they hear more?
Well, if you go and just subscribe to our podcast, you can go to YouTube, you can go to Apple Music, you can go to podcasts on your phone, which I think is Apple Music. And then you also go to Spotify, Apple Podcast, whatever it is.
Podcast,
it's a little
Spotify.
purple button that says podcast. It's on every iPhone. So go check it out. So you can go all those. You need to like, subscribe, share. You need to give us 5 stars, maybe 5.5 if they give that extra half there. I mean, even if they don't, just write it in your note, say we would give them 5.5 stars if we could, or even 6 or 10.
When he says and a half, that auctioneer voice.
I got 25, I got 5.5, 5.5, 5.75, 5.75, I got 5.75, 5.75, 5.75. I got $6,000. Come on. Anyways, no, I appreciate it, and I appreciate, I love it when we have more vulnerable ones like this because I think, it's not the same topic that a lot of guys are willing to talk about.
Shoot, you think this is vulnerable? The next podcast we're all naked.
Shit.
I have to be real vulnerable for that. Hey, that was the best thing about being 500 pounds. Even though I was naked, I was still covered. You couldn't see nothing, man.
And we're out.
Bam! Make a clip out of that one.